back again, and this time we have a new guest, Laura Barat. Laura Barat has been practicing astrology for 20 years, and she has a book to her credit, a book which is based entirely on Ishtaphala and Kashtaphala. For the new ones here, Ishtaphala and Kashtaphala means the good and the bad that a planet has to give for a person in his or her natal chart. So based just entirely on this technique, she has an entire method of prediction. She also uses Varshaphal extensively for her chart reading and is developing a course on it. Today we invite her to teach us how, and this in short, how she uses this Varshaphal and what are the techniques or the finer points of Varshaphal. So moving on to Laura, a very hearty and a warm welcome onto this platform on my YouTube channel, Laura. So I'd not take much time and we'll get directly onto you. What is so fascinating about Varshaphal that made you use this technique?
Well, it's you can see you get a horoscope, a different horoscope every year of a person's life, and you can really nail down predictions to sometimes to the very day based on Varshaphal, and it gives you, you know, a very unique look at a person's life, just 1 year of their life. And it immediately gives you 4 or 5 different things to focus your astrological analysis on immediately. And I did use it before for a birth time rectification. You can use it for that, and because it's so precise, you know, the increments of time are so small. So I just love it. I love it for making really concrete predictions. You can tell, you know, the person's rise in life, birth, you know, birth of children, getting married, all of those things you can really nail down, you know, within a week sometimes. So that's what I love.
The most important point that you said was you loved it. When you do something out of love, the fruits are different altogether. So let's move on to what Laura has to teach us today.
Okay, so when you look at a Varshaphal, there's mainly five things that you are going to look at, and you can immediately see these during the solar return on the birthday of the person. And if you go to number 1, yep, there you go. That's you automatically get these things to look at to see what's going on in a person's life for that year. And you have the Lord of the Year, and that's going to tell you a lot. Basically, for example, if Jupiter is Lord of the Year, the person can have Jupiterian things come into their life, like children, or you know, religious spirituality, you know, getting grace from guru, all of those types of things. Money and wealth will come into a person's life if Jupiter's the Lord of the Year. If you have Saturn as Lord of the Year, then that is the person's going to have to work really hard, and what they work for will take a long time for them to see the fruits of their actions. And you know, that automatically will give you kind of the theme of that year for a person.
Primary indication as to how the year is going to be.
Right, yeah. And also where the Lord of the Year is placed. If the Lord of the Year is placed in what house it's placed in, that's also incredibly important. That's a big focus of the year. So if the Lord of the Year is in the 5th house, then you know, your children are going to be very important in that year. Okay, then your children will come into focus. Also students, or learning, you know, the fifth house indications. There are certain, and then, okay, so moving on, after you've analyzed the Lord of the Year, you're going to analyze something called the mantha. And mantha is a Persian word. It just means the progressed lagna, or the progressed ascendant, and it moves one sign a year. And that's, you don't even need software to tell you what that is. When you're born, the mantha is the lagna, pretty much. And then when you turn 1, the mantha is the next sign. So you move one sign a year for each person, for each year of your life.
Your second year running, that is, you complete one, after one completed year, the second year running, the mantha would become the second house.
Right. Yep.
My 11th year running, after completing 10 years and moving into my 11th year, the mantha would become the 11th house.
Right. Exactly.
Okay.
And so you can tell what your mantha is just by knowing your age. You don't even need software for that. But so now the mantha is very also extremely important. It's just as important as the Lord of the Year. Those two things immediately you're going to look at. And if can you still hear me? Oh,
yes.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Okay. Great. If there's certain houses that the mantha, if the mantha occupies certain houses, it will automatically give really good effects, or it's going to give more challenging effects depending on which house it's in. So if the mantha falls in the 6th, 8th, or 12th house, obviously there's going to be some challenges during the year. Also, if the mantha is placed in the 4th house or the 7th house, it also presents some challenges. And the reason is, in the 4th house, if you see the mantha in the 4th house, usually the person has some problems in their home life, or they can move house, which is very stressful. It's like you have to adjust your actions to placate that house. So if the mantha is in the 7th house, you have to adjust your way of being, your natural personality, to get along with your spouse or get along with your significant other. So that's why he doesn't really like the mantha in the 4th or 7th house. So it's the 4th, 7th, 6th, 8th, and 12th. Those houses present some challenges if the mantha is in those houses.
But it could also mean that because 7th house is like your association with the public life. So it could also mean some challenges on the public front also, or in your business or something like that.
Yeah, definitely. You're going to have some challenges with the public or with your business partners or your business. Yep. All 7th house indications, and which is a major part of life. So
we have mantha when occupying the 6th, 7th, and the 8th house right in tandem. So these 3 years can be a little difficult for a person to, as per the Varshaphal.
Yes, exactly. Now, when you calculate the Varshaphal, you're going to get, some people calculate it for their birthplace, even if they're no longer living there. And some people calculate it for where they're living at the time.
Okay.
Now, I always do it from the birthplace. And just that's the way I was taught. And I've actually tested it. I've experimented with it, and I found it to work much better from the birthplace. Always from the birthplace. And you're going to get an ascendant, a different ascendant if you calculate it from the birthplace, obviously, than if you're living in a different time zone. So you're going to get an ascendant. You're going to have the Varshaphal ascendant. You're going to have your natal ascendant or your natal lagna, and then you're going to have the Varshaphal lagna. So you look at the mantha from the Varshaphal lagna, and you look at it from the natal lagna.
Okay, so you need to coincide them both.
Yes. Yeah, you look at both, definitely. So yeah, that's the mantha. Now, you're going to, if there are any grahas occupying the mantha. Let's say you have Mars in the mantha, then martial things are going to be very prevalent during your, Mars breaks things. Mars, arguing and aggression, that's going to come into your life. There's going to be some enemies or, your siblings, Mars's siblings. So those things are going to be prevalent in your life as well. So any planets occupying the mantha are a major part of the year. They're going to give their effects and make that planet very prevalent during the year. So yeah, that's the mantha. So there's three things. Now, if the mantha has no planets, if there's no planets in the mantha, then you're going to look at the planets aspecting the mantha. And this is according to the aspects of the Tajika aspects, but which is calculated with most astrology softwares. But if there are benefic planets like Venus or a waxing moon or Jupiter aspecting the mantha, then that year is easier. And those indications will come into the year. It's not as strong as if a planet was occupying the mantha, but it's still, you can still see the effects if a planet is strongly aspecting that mantha.
So if you have a direct effect of, say, Jupiter, or say moon, or say sun, then the mantha's qualities will change as per the different kind of aspects that it has on it.
Right. Yeah. If you have, there's good aspects and bad aspects, and or negative aspects. The negative aspects are the square. These are, basic Western astrology aspects. They're very similar. They're identical, actually. So you have an opposition or a square aspect to the mantha. From that's more difficult. That means, like, say you have a benefic planet and it's making a square or an opposition aspect to the mantha, then that the good things in life, or the more easier things in life, are going to give you trouble. That's how you would read that.
Okay, so for the benefit of our viewers here, the square aspect as meant by Laura here means an aspect from the 4th house or the 10th house or the mantha. And the opposition effect is definitely the 7th house from the mantha here. So what you are actually trying to say, Laura, is that if there is any planet which is aspecting the mantha from the squares to it, from the 4th, 7th or the 10th to it, those planets, even if they are benefic, probably later on land us in a problem.
Yes, it's going to be more difficult. It's going to give you some problems, definitely.
Okay.
Yeah, and also the in the Tajika or the Varshaphal system, the conjunction is also a negative aspect.
Okay.
So if two planets are conjoined within orb, then yeah, that's also kind of a challenging aspect.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's interesting in this system because they call, if a planet is in the 4th, 10th, conjoined, or the 7th, from the mantha, or from the Lord of the Year, or from any planet, that planet is said to be an enemy, quote unquote, an enemy. But it's interesting because the square aspect in the 4th of the 10th, those are secret enemies. And a planet in the 1st and the 7th, those are open enemies. So when you have a planet in the 4th or the 10th, and they're secret enemies, you don't realize that this planet is causing you trouble until the actual event manifests. And it's like working behind the scenes. It's like somebody at work that's is jealous. You have a jealous person at work trying to give you troubles, and they're talking behind your back or something, but you don't know that they're doing it. That's a fourth and 10th aspect.
Thank you for
Those
such
are,
a beautiful analogy.
yeah, secret and open enemies. So, okay, so moving on, so that's the montha, any planets in the montha, and the Lord of the Year, and where the Lord of the Year is placed. 4 things you can immediately look at and start making predictions for that person for that year. Okay, so the next one. The next one is the montha Lord. So let's say your montha for that year is Taurus. The montha Lord would be Venus. So you're going to look at where Venus is placed, the house placement of Venus, and any conjoining planets.
Right.
So the montha Lord is a lot like the Lord of the Year.
Just a point here that I need to ask.
Okay.
This is we talking about the Varshaphal. We are not switching on to the placement of the montha Lord on any on the natal chart. We are talking specifically about the Varshaphal chart that we have made. We've taken the montha Lord and we are just seeing as to where the montha Lord is placed in the Varshaphal chart.
Yes, you also do look at the montha placement and the montha Lord placement from the natal lagna. Okay. You look at that as well, but you want to look at it from the Varshaphal lagna first. Right. Okay. And so, whatever the montha Lord is and where it's placed, those indications and are going to be prevalent during the year as well. Now, a really good thing to have is if the montha Lord is aspecting the montha or is in the montha, then that really makes for an easy, auspicious year. Okay. And even if it's a malefic, let's say your montha is Capricorn and you have Saturn in Capricorn, that is going to be a very good placement. Even though it's a malefic. So Saturnian things will be very easy. You'll enjoy your work. You'll enjoy working hard, and that type of thing. So yeah, these are automatically things you can start looking at to start making predictions. Now the Varshaphal lagna, the lagna that you get when you calculate the chart. That's let's say you were born in Miami or something, and now you live in California. So you're going to calculate the Varshaphal lagna for Miami if you were born there, and if there are any planets in that lagna, that's also extremely important. That planet in the Varshaphal lagna, and I'll show you, I have some examples of that, how that manifested. But any planets in that Varshaphal lagna are also very important, just like any planets in the montha. You also look, like I said before, you look at the montha and the year Lord from the natal lagna or the natal ascendant. And then you also look at the sun, because Varshaphal is based on the sun. The whole system is based on when the sun returns. Yeah, when the sun returns to your natal sun, when it hits your natal sun, that's when you calculate the chart. So it's all based on the sun. So the sun, you're always going to look at the sun's bhava placement from the Varshaphal lagna. That's also very important. And that bhava, that house, will also come into be very prevalent during the year. Now, the last one is interesting. These are called shahams, and most astrology softwares calculate them for you. And what those are in Western astrology, they call them parts. And they use something called the part of fortune in Western astrology, and that's all they use. But there's several shahams. I can't remember how many. I think there's like 30, 33 or something. A lot. So there's a lot of shahams. And the most important one is the punya shaham, or it's also, that means auspicious. And wherever that shaham is, that the house placement of that shaham, the house placement from the Varshaphal Lagna, is where you're going to find auspiciousness during the year. That's where your luck is going to come from during the year. So wherever that shaham is, that's kind of where, you know, something you can aspire to during the year, something to look forward to. And it's kind of like God telling you, this is important during the year, rely on this during the year. This is going to help you during the year. Even if it's a difficult year, this is going to help get you through. So wherever that punya shaham is, and the punya shaham relates to the first house. If, let's say, if you have the punya shaham in the first house, or the Varshaphal Lagna, or you have the punya shaham in the same sign as the Varshaphal Lagna Lord, that it relates to the first house. If you have the punya shaham with the Lord of the Year in the same sign of the Lord of the Year, or if you have the punya shaham in the mantha, all of those things will go to make the year more auspicious. So yeah, those are pretty important. And so how, you know, so these are a lot of things to look at.
We need an example to make it more interesting for the viewers.
Yeah, definitely.
So let's take up an example now.
Okay. Okay, this is Princess Diana for her age 20. And this is when she got married and had a child, all within the same year. Okay.
Right.
So so this is you know, very, very easy example. So immediately we see her mantha is Leo, and her year lord is the moon.
Okay, so this was her 20th year, is it?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so 20th year, if we count, comes to the 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. So it's a Scorpion. I think I will have to.
Oh, sure. Her natal lagna is Sagittarius.
Okay.
But this is her lagna for Varshaphal. This is her Varshaphal lagna.
Okay, so if this her natal, so if we calculate from Sagittarius, then after 12 years, it would have reached Scorpio. Then again from the 13th year, she moves on to Sagittarius, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. So her 20th year, when she moves into her 21st year, she moves into Leo.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay.
And that's her mantha. So for this age 20. And interestingly enough, Leo is the ninth house from Sagittarius, which is her natal lagna. So we have a lot of ninth house stuff going on in this chart, in this Varshaphal chart. And she got married and had a child. So all in this year. So marriage is of obviously the ninth house, and then she had a child. The ninth house is the fifth from the fifth. So it's secondary ninth house things, right?
Right.
So she has in her mantha, which is Leo for this year, in her mantha, she has Venus, the planet of marriage.
Right.
And then she has her year lord is the moon.
Right.
And her mantha lord is the sun. So she has both of those planets in the ninth house. So even more focus on marriage and childbirth.
That is ninth house from the Varshaphal.
Right. Yep. Definitely. And so that's a really good example right there. I mean, that is just so really easy to make some predictions just based on that. Just
Very
so
obvious,
many.
in the face kind of prediction can be made.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. So there was no way this woman wasn't going to get married during her 20th year.
We move on to another example here, and we take the example of Princess Diana all over again, and this time her age was 23. That is,
Mhm.
she has passed 23 years of age and is in her 24th year, according to the Indians, as we say it. The 23 years she's completed. So then, as per her Lagna, being Sagittarius in the natal chart, she would be in the 12th house of the natal chart. So the Munta would be the 12th house. Here, the Varshaphala Lagna is Virgo.
Yep. Yes. And this year she gave birth to Harry, Prince Harry.
Mm-hmm.
And so in this year her year lord is Jupiter. And Jupiter is in the 5th house.
Okay.
So right there, children, two indications of children.
Right.
Even though he's debilitated, but it still gave her children. And now also in her Mantha is Scorpio.
Right.
And she's got Saturn Mars there. Not very good combination. And the Saturn Mars, or the 3rd house, is the siblings and just competitors and the will and that kind of thing. And it's been kind of widely known about her that she had some depression going on, and she had some
That's exactly what I was going to say, that postnatal depression was something that hit her during this time. And even a debilitated Jupiter, a debilitated yet retrograde Jupiter says the same thing. So that was
right. Unfortunately, yeah. And then you'll notice too that the ruler of Virgo, her Varshaphal Lagna Lord, is in the 11th house with Venus and Sun. And, the 11th house is like groups and our peers and, socializing, making ourselves
contact. Yes.
Right. And, she was the Princess of Wales. So obviously she had to, go to all of these things and rub noses with all of these, important people, royalty, and that kind of thing. And what I got from this chart is she really wasn't that happy about it, and that came out later. She was very unhappy with all of this, except for her charity work. She really enjoyed that, which she started doing right after Harry was born in this year. So, which is being present in these and going to these functions and parties and very 11th house type of thing. So just by looking at this chart, looking at the year lord, the Mantha, the Varshaphal Lagna Lord, all of these things, you can kind of start making predictions right away and be very accurate in them.
You can also say, Laura, that the sun, which is the 12th lord here and represents charities as the 12th lord, is there with Mercury. So along with the socializing that she did, she also did a lot of charity work and got it out in the open, not kept it,
Yes, definitely.
She was a champion for the AIDS patients and things like that.
Yeah, she was. And she started very early with this. This is when she really got going with it. So, and it's something that she enjoyed. those are the things I think gave her happiness. I don't know. She really wasn't that happy being, the Princess of Wales. But so yeah, this is a really good example too. And there's one chart where I was going to talk about the Punya Shaham. I don't remember if this was it or not. No, this wasn't okay.
So we're going to talk about Punya Shahams now with John F. Kennedy's chart.
Yep, we'll talk about that. Now, my software, I didn't put it up here, but the Punya Shaham is in Capricorn in this chart. And this is John F. Kennedy. This is the year he won the presidency.
Okay.
And he won the presidency and he became president all during this year, age 43. And okay, so this is a little more not as blatant as the last two examples. Okay, here you're going to have to look a little harder, and then you're going to look for the for his natal ascendant. You have to look from the natal ascendant. You do that, in every Varshaphal chart as well. But this one, you can see a lot from the natal ascendant because his natal ascendant is Libra. So, anyway, so he has the moon as the year lord, and Taurus as the Mantha. And so just looking from the natal ascendant, I'm going to talk about it from the natal ascendant, and then I'll get to the Varshaphal ascendant. But from the natal ascendant, the moon is very strong here in the 10th house of power, of prestige and power and influence. And the moon is the public, so he won the presidency and became president and became with the public behind him.
Right.
And so his Mantha from the natal ascendant is in the 8th house. So his situation completely changed. He went through a complete transformation. He went from being a senator to being the president of the United States. So that's a huge transformation, right? And then from the natal ascendant, from the Varshaphal ascendant, it's the 3rd house. And that's also a secondary 8th house signification. The 8th house, the 3rd house is the 8th from the 8th.
It's also the house of courage, initiation, working with your hands and things like that.
Yep, definitely. And yeah, like you said, courage. And so the 5th house, Parashara says the 5th house is, the change in royalty or your continuance. So the change in royalty, because the 5th house is the 8th from the 10th. So there's a change in our power and influence, or a major transformation of our power and influence, and by the public, coming from the public, which is the moon. So and it's very, very strong here. Probably its second strongest placement. So yeah, you can read it from both of those, from the Varshaphal ascendant and also from the natal ascendant. Now, from the Varshaphal ascendant, which is Pisces, his lord, the Varshaphal Lagna lord, is in Capricorn. It's debilitated, but it's in Capricorn in the 11th. And that is the gain from our power and influence. Okay? And then it's with the Lord.
Of the 11th.
Yep. And so this Saturn here will really bring, because it's the Lord, and his ascendant Lord and the 10th Lord, which is the power and influence, is with this Lord. So that's giving him a lot of power. Now his Punya Shaham is with his Varshaphal ascendant Lord and the 10th Lord. So he's going to get his auspiciousness. The auspiciousness of the year is coming from his social circle, which is the 11th house, the groups, the people probably donating to his campaign and helping him get elected. That shows up in that Punya Shaham being here in the 11th house with its Lord. It also shows up with being next to his Varshaphal Lagna Lord. So his auspiciousness will come from himself, and also the 10th Lord coming from his career and his power and influence. So you really see how that Punya Shaham helped him with the presidency and helped him, he got his auspiciousness from these groups and his donors and things like that. So that's a really good.
This is a very, very strong chart in itself, if you can say so, Laura, because you see there's so many planets right there in their own houses. Mars is in his own house, of the second house of administration. So he was very courageously, he took on the reins of administration very strongly. Then Mercury, the fourth lord, is present in the fourth house, very much so. And then Moon, the fifth lord, in the fifth house. We have Rahu in Virgo, which is a very good and a very strong place for Rahu. And we also have Saturn sitting in its own house, retrograde, but its own house. So many planets in their own houses already or positions of strength does make for a good year ahead. We can very well predict that you might just have a good year ahead.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, very strong chart, extremely. And then even if you read it from the natal ascendant too, he's got that really strong Mars in the house of the public, it's
Mercury, a strong Mercury right there in the 9th house of luck, and Moon 10th lord, masses you're doing, as you've already stated. Rahu in the 12th, so you're craving for international travels, you move abroad, you can roll it out.
Yes, very strong chart. I'm very I would be very impressed if I saw this, from a client. If they came for me this year, I would say you're going to have an excellent year, a wonderful year.
Going to go places.
Yeah, definitely.
We move back to Lady Diana's chart to see something different now, because the age here is 34 plus. That would mean the 35th year running. That would take the Muntha to be 24. That would mean Scorpio would arrive at 24, 25th, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30. 31st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th. So we come to her 11th house. The Muntha lord here becomes the 11th lord of Venus. And here in her Varshaphal chart, the Varshaphal Lagna falls in Taurus, which again is ruled by Venus. So this must be something very different a year. Laura, I leave it to you.
Yes. Okay. This is the year. This isn't the year that her divorce was finalized, but this is the year before that. This is the year when they really started having problems, and their problems were very public. And Charles was having an affair with Camilla, and also apparently Diana accused him of impregnating his assistant, and she did it publicly. So there was all of this feuding going on, and their marriage was just falling apart. And I wanted to show this because here her Mantha is in the 6th house. And the 6th house is, all the enemies and the divorce. Some people read divorce from different houses. I read it from the 6th because it's the loss of the spouse, and also your spouse becomes your enemy. So that's kind of really what happened. So that right there, kind of shows a lot of discord and unhappiness.
Disharmony, legal issues, battles working right there.
Right, right. It was a very difficult year for her, and she was very public about it. And she was talking in interviews constantly about this. And it's interesting because the moon is her year lord, and the moon is the public. So, she was really communicating with the public about how miserable she was and unhappy she was in his marriage. So, so that can really be seen, and especially this nodal axis here. Rahu, she was having an affair with what's his name, Hewitt, and
yeah, I forgot his name.
yeah, and there was just so much going on. There are rumors of their affairs. It kind of shows up in this Rahu in the 7th house, and is she having all these problems with her husband? So yeah, and then Jupiter. This is her. Jupiter's in the 8th, and the 8th is the transformation or the death and rebirth of the men in her life or her husband. So this isn't the year the divorce was totally finalized, but it was just it was over. The marriage was over in this year here. So and then right after she turned 35, they finalized the divorce like 2 months later or a month later. So so she's a good example. She really is a great, her chart is just so easy or her Varshaphal charts are so easy to read. Okay, this is a woman who was on Pan Am Flight 88, which blew up over Scotland. I know it happened in 1988. That's where I'm getting the 88 from. And this woman's natal ascendant is Pisces. And a year lord is Saturn. And the month of lord is Scorpio, Scorpio being the montha. Now, she obviously died in this year. And this can be seen from her natal ascendant. It can also be seen from her from the Varshaphal ascendant. And this is using these yogas called the Tajika yogas. And I'll talk about that in a second. But I just wanted to show from her natal ascendant, she's got a Mars Rahu which is explosions. The Rahu externalizes and externalizes the energy of Mars. It's not really a good combination at all. So, right there, and then there's these, we were talking about the aspects, about planets being enemies. And you'll see here in her Varshaphal ascendant, she's got Saturn, which is the Lord of death or longevity, the planet of longevity and death.
Time, Kal.
And it's in yoga, or it's in a yoga with Mars. And Mars and Saturn it's not a good combination. Definitely not. And you'll notice here too that there are secret enemies. Okay, they're in that 4-10 relationship. Then you have the sun. Remember, I said the sun. Its placement is also very important. It's in the 8th house from the Varshaphal ascendant.
Right.
So I didn't look at it. Now, if you start seeing when you do these Varshaphal charts, you look at all the planets. You look at the house placements. You look at the natural indications of the planets, and then once you start doing that, you can go to Shahams, and we can talk about that next time. These are also very important in prediction. And then, you see kind of the overall theme of the chart, where the person's life is going, and then you start using Shahams. But, we can start talking about that next time. But I just wanted to show you a little bit on her chart. how that works. So
Yes, I get the point is very loud and clear in that chart because Saturn, as you say, aspects Mars. Rahu externalizes the energy of Mars, as you again said, and Sun is placed in the 8th house of death. So, and Sun is the ninth lord. So, we've well,
yeah.
Laura, it was really an eye opener how the Varshaphal chart is so much able to pinpoint things at one glance, and everybody is very interested as to how their next year is going to be. On the long run, we definitely are interested, but the next year holding the immediate future is also very important. And getting so many clues about the immediate future is a boon for many because we can plan things out. Talking about planning, we need
Hmm.
to get you back on board with more examples to make this more interesting and far reaching to our audience, Laura. So, we are not going to leave you, we're going to invite you back for another reading, another chart examples, and more on Varshaphala.
Oh, great. Thank you.
So, till we meet again, Laura, have a great
Okay.
have a great day, and all of you out there, have a nice time learning more and more as they come your way. Thank you so much.